Hello and welcome to another installment of Political Election 2020, the show all about the US 2020 election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I'm Ian Smith. I'm joined by Connor Allen.
Hello there.
Today we are talking about Trump, and more specifically the platform that Trump is running on and the single most important reason why we believe that he should win. But before we get
not necessarily why he should win, but why it's so important for him to win. Why it's critical, not just for the US, but for the allies around the world, the entire free world, for him to win.
You're right, yeah. So I kind of misspoke. Why he needs to win. But before we get into that, please consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. Click the icon bell and you'll be notified whenever we produce a new video, which is every couple of days at this point. And if you do enjoy this video, then please like it and comment down below if you have an opinion to add, or something we said, something we missed, something you disagree with, whatever it is. But it really helps the channel. It really helps us grow and hopefully get more of our message out and create more discourse and a platform for people to talk about politics. So, we'll go into it. Trump recently has been talking about China again, which, I mean, he's been talking about China for about 20, 30 years at this point. But more specifically, he's laid out a platform for what he will do if he is to win another term, and what else he is going to do to kind of shift the balance of this war, this Cold War, this trade war, whatever you want to call it, between the US and China.
Perhaps before we jump into that, maybe we can think about a bit about why it's so important to counter China and to challenge China and to make sure it doesn't go unchecked. Because at the moment, there's one state in the world that's committing an active genocide. It's China with the Uyghur. One state in the world where its citizens are essentially slaves to the will of the state. It's China. There's no liberty in China. There is no personal enterprise in China. The state decides for you your lot in life, and they enforce it upon you. It's disgusting. It's anti-human. And if we allow them to grow to be the largest economic power in the world, they will use that to enslave all of us, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, those are very bold claims. I should clarify, obviously, they're not the only state in the world that does
Perhaps
those
the
things.
most prominent.
But obviously the biggest. I mean, they may even well be the biggest, most powerful country in the world right now. I mean, they are in some metrics, right? But yeah, we're talking about a new Cold War, essentially, right? Would you think it would be fair to characterize it as that way, or is that hysterical
Absolutely.
to say it's a new Cold War?
Yeah. Absolutely. If you look at Africa, Chinese influence in Africa, it's stripping the continent bare. They're investing so heavily in infrastructure projects across Asia and into Eurasia. They're sending in troops to Hong Kong to brutally suppress a democratic regime. Every single flashpoint in the world, China is there profiting behind the scenes. It will be a much more stable place for China's democracy.
Sure, I like when I think about this, and when I think, and I really, I think for years now, as long as I can remember from when I was younger, when I was a teenager, so over 10 years, people were talking about China as this global superpower that will eventually overtake the US, and I didn't really think much of it. I thought, okay, of course, right? They're a huge population, they're a growing economy, of course that's going to happen. I hadn't really considered the repercussions of that. And I think what people don't realize, and it comes from a Western ignorance, I suppose. We're so used to being a part of this group of very powerful Western liberal nations. We dictate, by and large, the world policy, so to speak, right? We're not used to, we cannot fathom this idea of another country being incredibly powerful that also doesn't have those same values that we have in Western society. And so it seems alien, unless, of course, you were around during, the height of the Cold War. But I think we're mostly talking about millennials here. Obviously, we are millennials, as much as it sort of pains us to say so. But we are millennials, and we've basically known relative peace. In the entire time that we've been alive, we've only ever seen our incredibly rich and powerful nations go around the world and imposing their own policy, right? So this concept of another nation with different values to ours being able to impose their policy on us, it sounds far-fetched, but I think that is the real prospect that we're facing with China.
And it's terrifying because when you say different policies imposed upon us, let's clarify, these aren't, simple tax policies. They aren't abstract policies that won't really affect your life. They are wiping out the Uyghur people in Western China. They're wiping out and brutally suppressing. They're conducting cultural settlements to try and impose Han Chinese culture in Canton. It's really a terrifying autocracy. And if you are an individual in China, you have no recourse whatsoever if you're not part of the system.
Right. And so if we're a Western nation and we see this and we think, well, what can we do about it? Other than kind of militaristic policy.
It would be impossible.
It would be. Yeah, of course, right. But other than militaristic policy, and that extends, I suppose, to that more of that neoconservative agenda of maintaining sort of that that shift of balance and influence in, obviously, the Middle East, and that's an ongoing situation. Other than that, and I don't want to get into that because it's a whole can of worms in itself. The other option is to dominate China economically, right? Or at least attempt to, right? Mm-hmm. To maintain economic dominance among Western nations. Mm-hmm. And I think Trump recognizes that. And he's recognized that for some time now. He's been rather consistent on his message on that. And, people may or may not disagree with the way in which he's done things with the tariffs. And they may think, well, this ultimately is going to cause America more harm than good because it's going to affect American businesses and so on and so forth. For me, it's more about the greater. It's the intent that's more important. It's important that there is a leader of the free world who recognizes the threat of China, because we're relying on America as Europeans to stem the threat that they pose, right?
And it's really become so apparent how much the world relies upon the United States for security. When Black Lives Matter started and riots and protests and plagues swept the US, what was the first thing that China did? It sent troops into Hong Kong. And America has its back turned. Dictators like Xi Jinping will take complete advantage to impose their authoritarian agenda on everybody. So you're absolutely right. You need a leader who's strong enough to unite a nation, also strong enough to stand up against China and to make the hard argument, because it is a hard argument to turn around to American businesses and say, actually, yes, you need to make a sacrifice. You need to adapt your markets because the greater good, we cannot trade with China. We cannot further empower that nation, and we cannot further interlink our two economies.
I mean, I completely agree. Sorry, go on.
And I was just going to say, if you have Donald Trump or Joe Biden, who you need to do that, do you pick?
Right,
it's really obvious, isn't
it? Yeah, I mean, and we'll come to that as well, because we do have the democratic policy on China. But you mentioned there a united nation, right? And America is very much from a united nation right now. It's actually obviously incredibly polarized, or so so we're told. To the extent of which it is, I don't know. Is how big is that vocal side of the Democratic Party, right? Well, obviously it seems to have David seemed to have infiltrated the party itself, right? Because you see prominent members of the Democratic Party echoing those same sentiments that, Trump is this, dictator that must be removed from power.
They're useful idiots, these people. They're China's puppets, in a way, because when they spread their discourse, and because they have a real hatred for America, don't they? And so when they lash out against America, as they're doing with the riots, they destabilize America, they weaken it, and people like the Uyghurs or the people in Hong Kong suffer. And let's be clear as well. If Joe Biden wins the election and his far left handlers under Bernie Sanders' dictation, they'll be having him apologize for things like the Boxer Rebellion 200 years ago, in which the United States intervened in China. Can you imagine, China invades, I don't know, the Philippines, and instead of confronting, instead of putting a US carrier group there, President Biden, he takes the knee for Xi Jinping and he apologizes for American colonial influence. He kisses the ground in front of him. This is the reality. This is what the far left want to do. They hate the West and they want to destroy it.
So I guess
crazy scenarios like this happen.
Yeah, so I think there's two questions I kind of want to pose to you now. The first one is when we talk about the divisiveness. Now, I don't believe, and I don't know actually entirely what you believe on this, but I do not believe that Trump has done anything to warrant all of this hysteria about the way that he has led the administration. I don't think he's literally Hitler. I don't think he should be removed from office at all cost, even if it means damaging America and damaging how unified they are. So I suppose the question I pose to you is, when you know that Trump is going to be the one that is stronger on China, but will probably divide America more, do you still go with him? And whose fault is it that America is being divided? Is it Trump's fault or is it other people's fault?
Well, no, we can't blame Donald Trump for the division, really, because there's one group of people going out and causing the violence. The Democrats, right? It's these far left liberals who hate America and hate everything it stands for, and they would rather talk about reparations for 200 years ago than confront the security realities of today.
Right. Okay.
These are the people dividing America, not the president trying to do his job.
I'm inclined to agree, and I think it becomes a matter of willing to die on a hill, I suppose, in some sense, because that Trump is out of the candidates that are available, that Trump is the right person for America. He's the person that the Western world needs. But what do you do? Are you supposed to just kind of bow down to the demands of the left because you think that they're going to create anarchy if he, is voted in for a second term? Is that really what democracy is about? In many ways, would we not be abandoning our own values if we did that? We found ourselves in a situation where we were in fear. I mean, I should obviously clarify that we don't live in America, so we're not talking about us in ourselves, but obviously the American people. Yeah, it does affect us. And this is why we're so concerned about the American election, and why we think it's our business to be educated about American politics, because like it or not, they dictate many aspects of our life through their own policy.
Not even just through policy, by precedents too. If the far left takes power in America through either a senile Joe Biden who's easily controlled by Bernie Sanders, or if something awful happens to Joe, and Kamala Harris takes charge, the president is set. Those far left ideas will be spread around the world. It won't just stop in American borders, because they come straight to Europe through social media, through Hollywood and things. You can see it in Hollywood. You can see every single Hollywood film nowadays has a woke agenda behind it. Every single company virtue signals. If a far left president in place, that's going to take on new levels. There's no coming back if Joe Biden wins the presidency.
Right, and you can't virtue signal your way. That doesn't work on the global stage. Okay, you can't go to Assad or Putin or Xi Jinping and say, oh, like you said, bow down to them, take a knee, and say, oh, we honourably apologise for Western colonialism and the oppression of the Chinese state.
Here's some money because we acknowledge our responsibility, so we're going to give you money.
We acknowledge
Trump was seconds away from launching a drone strike on Iran, okay? But Joe Biden would rather sit down with Ayatollah Khomeini and kiss his feet and apologize sincerely for the Western aggression against Iran, Operation Mossadegh and things like this. Well, it's crazy.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of neoconservatism because I know we disagree, but I do actually think that being at war with Iran is possibly one of the few issues that the left and right in America seem to agree upon, and Trump is the outlier in that regard.
Well, I'm not talking about war. I'm talking about the willingness to confront.
I understand the point you were making. Do you think
China strips Hong Kong of democracy if a US caviar group is sat outside Hong Kong? I don't think so. You need a president who is willing.
I get that.
Has a bit of a oomph around him, who's able to toe the line. And
I understand the point you were making. I suppose I just wanted to clarify that. I don't think, at least anyway, that he should confront Iran, for example. Like, you should pick and choose battles. But yeah. So, shall we actually talk about Trump's policy on China, at least the ones that he has
15 minutes in.
Yeah, that he has come out and talked about 2 days ago and said what he's going to do, or what further measures he will implement to try and reduce China's economic prowess. So, I want to quote, we'll manufacture our critical manufacturing supplies in the United States. We'll create made in America tax credits and bring our jobs back to the United States and impose tariffs on companies that desert America to create jobs in China and other countries.
Do you know what's important as well?
Go on.
His past actions too. Because if you look at TikTok, for example, huge billions of dollars of investment. For some politicians in the Democratic Party, the thought of taking real strong action on TikTok would have been unthinkable. Only Donald Trump had the strength of will to be able to do that. And of course you have to, because every single tech company coming out of China these days has some sort of link to the state. It has a security concern. It's with Huawei.
Whether that company... Here's the thing: is that obviously I'm sure I think TikTok is owned by Tencent,
massive company.
Yeah, a significant chunk of it is owned by Tencent, who obviously own Blizzard today as well. Am I right in thinking?
No, they don't own Blizzard.
No, they don't own Blizzard.
They have several deals with them. So World of Warcraft in China is released through Tencent rather than Blizzard.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, these companies, now I'm sure that the people that own Tencent, for instance, are primarily concerned with building up their company and profiting. The point is, what their concern is of relevance. It's what is of the Chinese government's concern and the Chinese state's concern. And if they decide that it's their concern, that they wish to know, I don't know, for instance, all of the personal data and details of every single player exactly that plays World of Warcraft or that uses TikTok, well, there's not much that they can really do about it. They either can agree or that they can basically face probably incredibly strict draconian punishment for all of their directors and people that lead the company. So, but yeah, just to go back onto Trump and his policy, I think, well, if they do it here, they can pay a big tax to build it someplace else and send it into our country. Will prohibit federal contracts from companies that outsource to China and will hold China accountable for allowing the virus to spread around our world. So to me, it sounds like he's saying we've already been quite confrontational with China, and we're going to do even more now to try and promote business in America. The US is not an authoritarian state, despite what some protesters will have you believe. So Trump can't just mandate these companies to build iPhones or whatever in California or whatever it is we're talking about. He has to incentivize them to do that through the power that he has as the executor. And he wants to have tax credits for companies that build in America. I mean, it sounds like, to be honest, it's an incredibly left-wing, mercantile policy where he's essentially trying to control the market and influence what companies do and where they build things.
Well, no, I disagree. Creating competitiveness through cutting taxes, for example, that's fine. That's a tool of the free state. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I find it very interesting that the very lefties you mentioned will look at a policy like that and they'll say, "Oh, it's a tax break for billionaires. We should be giving that money to people instead." I mean,
the point. I think the wider point I was trying to make was, when we talk about Trump derangement syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome doesn't mean you dislike Trump, right? Because there are many people who have looked at Trump's policy and they've decided, or they've looked at Trump as a person. Yeah, I agree with some things, I disagree with some things. I'm going to go with Biden, or I'm going to go with the other Kanye West, right? Whoever it is that you're voting for. And that's fine. Right?
Because we don't agree with every single policy.
No, we don't actually. And I've been critical of him to you in many situations about things that he's done, and obviously you've been critical of me about many things that he's done before, and that's absolutely fine. And even places that the supposed places where Trump gets a free ride, like Fox News and things like this, the journalists there, Tucker Carlson, incredibly critical of him on his foreign policy intervention in Syria with the drone strikes, the escalation in Iran. He was critical of the way he handled the protests, said that he should have done more to protect American businesses in these democratic cities, that he's their president as well, even though they don't vote for him. I think those are fair points. We are entirely critical of Trump. The point is, though, Trump derangement syndrome does not mean that you dislike Trump. It means that even in the areas where you align with Trump, you're unwilling to give him credit for because you hate the man so much that you will twist it. You will play mental gymnastics with yourself until you find an angle where you can attack him from it. And it's exactly what you were talking about there. This sounds to me like a fair, a policy you would expect the Democratic Party to be coming out with, right? Tax credits for companies that build in America. That doesn't sound like the corporate neoliberal elites that, control the Republican Party and just get loads of tax breaks and, hoard wealth. That sounds like a president concerned about manufacturing and wanting to increase jobs and opportunity for people in skilled labor, right?
Yeah, help those people in the Rust Belt states who've been
left
behind, who are still waiting for those jobs to come back. Yeah, absolutely.
So the people that have Trump derangement syndrome, they'll look at a policy like that and they'll twist it, like you say, oh, this is a tax break for the rich, right? Because they've created this caricature of Trump as this evil man who's basically Hitler. And if they agree with him on anything, then it means that there's something wrong with them in their mind. So that's what we, and I want to clarify, because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about Trump derangement syndrome.
And before we move on to Joe Biden's policies, we should probably say this is the great difference between the right and the left, right? The left think that the people on the right are bad people. People on the right think that people on the left have bad ideas. And I think that encapsulates the difference quite nicely.
I think that captures the broad sentiment. Obviously, there's always outliers. Obviously, not everyone, can be assigned to one of those groups. But that is the argument that you often hear, right? The left is moralistically superior. Everyone who opposes them is evil. those on the right basically think the left are naive and don't understand the economy or business or whatever, right?
So let's look at the policies from the left then. Let's look at Joe Biden.
So Joe Biden's policy, and this is coming from the 79-page, oh God, it says it's grown since I last looked, apparently. It's a 90-page Democratic Party platform now.
Made the font bigger.
Yeah. Classic technique, right? When you've got a page count for your assignment, yeah. So Biden's policy, or the Democratic policy, seems to be rather similar to Trump's policy, right? And we'll speculate as to why that might be. But apparently, and this is the Democratic manifesto, so to speak, the platform, what they presented in the convention. The COVID pandemic has shown the risk of relying too heavily on global supply chains, as shutdowns and shortages have created chaos for workers and consumers and made our public health response even more challenging. So just got to tie that into COVID as any possible way that they can.
I disagree with this so much because global supply chains are the very cornerstone of our society. The problem is when those global supply chains go to somewhere murky and untransparent and with a lack of democracy like China, get global pandemics coming out because the local officials in Wuhan were so incompetent and so scared of annoying their superiors that they didn't take decisive action needed. And thus hundreds of thousands of lives are lost because of China's corrupt authoritarian system. The Democrats don't tell you that. They're looking at, they want to put the plaster on the wound.
Yeah, well, Asians are a minority in America, so China can't possibly do anything wrong. That's the way that Americans see. That's how Americans see China. If any particular group of people is a minority, unless you're like white European or descended from white Europeans, unless you're a minority in a particular country, or if you are a minority in any country, then there's nothing. You can't do anything wrong. Okay, as a group. So the Chinese
goes back to what we were saying before. The first great democratic policy, the Great Apology Act, and the Great Reparations Act, number 2.
All federal agencies are mandated to apologise where and when they see white oppression and historic systemic.
But we're going down the rabbit hole with this one. Let's continue the policies.
Listen, we don't need to. These jokes have been made. But yeah, I mean, what else have they got here? So we're not doing our comments to go. No, this is Trump's people.
The sources are down in the description below if you do want to read this large synthesis of the 90-page document.
So we will eliminate Trump's tax and trade policies that encourage big corporations to ship jobs overseas and evade paying their fair share of taxes, and we will take immediate action to repair the damage President Trump's reckless policies have done to American farmers by working with our allies to send it to China and negotiate from the strongest possible position. So it sounds to me.
Mind, I've got a headache just thinking about this.
So
by making America less competitive and making China more attractive, you are going to help those corporations pay tax in China instead of in America. You're going to drive jobs away. Corporations have to be profitable. They will do the thing that renders them more profitable. And if that means going to China instead of the US, where they pay 10% of the labor costs, 10% of the overheads, they're going to do it.
But kind of here's what really frustrates me is the Democratic platform is basically just a bunch of loaded arguments. They don't go, and there isn't any like solution to issues. What they basically do is they just attack Trump on things that people view him positively for. So they'll say, the only one that's trying to defund the police is Donald Trump. Who in their right mind believes that? Who in their right mind listens to that and goes, oh yeah, no, they're right. Yeah, I've got to vote for Biden, otherwise Trump's going to what the hell? What the fuck? I love the police now, right?
It's dangerous and irresponsible,
and then there's this. Trump's policy encourages corporations to ship jobs overseas. How does that make it? Who believes this? Rather than trying to elevate their own platform above Trump's and say, these are our policies, these are democratic policies, come and vote for us, they're just, it's like Trump light, and then they're trying to take the strengths that Trump has in his policy, and say that he's not doing that, and then say that they are going to do that. It doesn't make any sense. The American people aren't stupid. They're not going to read that and think, oh yeah, no, totally, I'm on board.
I completely agree. And it's dangerous and irresponsible, because actually what happens is when you have a manifesto that's full of crap, like here, you don't know what president you're getting, because rather than looking back to the manifesto he was elected on, he instead has to come up with every policy on the fly. So there is no coherent strategy against China. Everything's going to be ad hoc if you vote for Joe Biden. And when it is ad hoc, that gives an awful lot of power to the so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
Because people have them on their knees.
The policy changes depending on what the flavour of the month is, right? And so I guess here's the thing. So when we're talking about, we've got the Chiron on there, why the most important reason why Trump must win. The most important reason is because, like it or not, the West is now in a Cold War with China. We must maintain the economic advantages that we have over China so that we can maintain the values and principles that we hold dearest in our culture and societies. Right? That's the point. Trump is going to be a better representative of those values and is going to do more to maintain American and, as a whole, Western prowess on the world stage economically. And even though Biden here says, oh yeah, we're going to do that as well, when you have a president who's been saying the same consistent policy for 30 years before he was president, before he was running for office,
who is in bed with people who hate America.
Yeah, and then you have Biden, who
that's why I
has,
think,
who has been in politics for what, 47 years.
I believe it was just after Jesus. Biden took office.
Right. Biden running for the campaign is mentioned in the Bible. Like Jesus and his the apostles,
and the upcoming senator from a land far across the sea.
Exactly right. And then you have Biden, who's been in politics for 47 years, and suddenly he decides that he wants to do something about China. It doesn't make any sense. Who is more trustworthy? Who do you think is more honest here? A man who's got consistent policy for 30 years, or a guy who's been in politics for 50 years and has done nothing? I don't for one minute believe that the Democratic Party will ever follow through on any of these policies that they have with regards to China. And anyone who thinks that they are, and thinks that they will, are having the wool pulled over their eyes, and that's being facilitated by their hatred for Trump.
Well said, well said. And I think that just about wraps up the video.
This is a passionate topic for me. So, anyone who has made it way to the end, I really appreciate.
Congratulations!
Yeah, congratulations. I really appreciate everyone watching. And please, as I will echo the sentiments I said in the beginning, please subscribe, please comment, please do all the things that help us with the algorithm. We're literally just two guys who have got jobs who really like politics, and we just want to talk about politics to people, and we'd really love it if other people came and talked politics to us as well.
Absolutely.